Okay, so let's talk about the processed foods that so many of us eat every single day. We're going to peel back the label and find two really different kinds of hidden risks. Some are just accidents of chemistry, and others, well, they're done on purpose.
It's a simple question, right? But the answer is surprisingly complicated. From your morning coffee to your late night snack, there's often a whole lot more going on than what you see on the package.
So pretty much all the weird stuff you might find in processed foods boils down to these two main problems. First, you've got accidental contaminants. Think of these as unwanted chemical byproducts that are created during manufacturing. And second, you've got intentional adulteration, which, let's be honest, is just fraud.
All right, first up, let's dive into the accidents. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't about companies trying to pull a fast one. This is all about chemistry, the stuff that happens when we process food to make it taste a certain way or last longer on the shelf. Okay, here's a perfect example. You've probably seen this on an ingredients list. Hydrolyzed vegetable protein, or HVP for short. It's the stuff that gives that super savory, kind of meaty, umami flavor to things like instant soups and gravy mixes. On the surface, seems totally fine, right? Well, let's look under the hood at how it's made. You take some vegetable protein, add hydrochloric acid, and then you crank up the heat. This process, called hydrolysis, is what creates that awesome savory flavor we're all after. But, and this is a really big but, it has this nasty little side effect. It can also create some really undesirable and frankly harmful compounds. Right, so these unwanted extras are called genotoxic. That's just a fancy science term for something that can actually damage your DNA, which can lead to mutations or even cancer. In fact, some of the compounds they found in this HVP process were shown to be carcinogenic in animal studies. So yeah, the very same process that makes the food tasty can accidentally create something pretty scary. Now, it's easy to hear that and think, well, that's just a problem in big factories with giant vats of chemicals. But think about that key ingredient we just mentioned, high heat. We use that in our own kitchens all the time, don't we? And it turns out heat can be a chemical wildcard, no matter if it's in a factory or on your backyard grill. Just look at this list. So many of these are things we do all the time. That smoky flavor from barbecuing sausages, it can create harmful PAHs. Frying up some potato chips, you might be forming acrylamide. Even something as simple as roasting coffee beans can generate a substance called furan. And that delicious char we all love on grilled meat, that can contain highly mutagenic compounds. Kind of wild, right? And this isn't just some fringe science theory. Regulators take this stuff very seriously. For instance, the legal limit for one of the most well-known PAH carcinogens in processed meat is just 1 microgram per kilogram. I mean, that is a tiny, tiny amount. It just goes to show you how potent these substances can be. And hey, it's not always about heat. These accidental chemicals can even come from the packaging itself. Think of stuff migrating out of rusty cans, or even reused plastic containers that hold cooking oils. Okay, let's switch gears completely. We're moving on from the accidents to the stuff that's done on purpose. This is where we talk about contamination that happens by design. And the motivation here isn't a complex chemical reaction. It's much simpler and, honestly, a lot more cynical. It's all about money. It's about cutting corners, boosting profits, and hoping nobody notices. I mean, just take a look at what can happen with meat products. You might think you're buying pure beef sausage, but what you could actually be getting is a product that's been bulked up with extra water, soy protein, or starchy binders. Or how about that cured ham? It might have way too many phosphates added just so it can hold onto more water and weigh more at the checkout. And let's talk about one of those additives for a second, nitrates. Now, they do serve a real purpose in cured meats like bacon. They help preserve that pinkish color and, very importantly, they stop dangerous bacteria from growing. But here's the catch. Under certain conditions, nitrates can react with other things in the meat and form nitrosamines, which are known to be powerful carcinogens. It's a fine line, and when producers use too much for economic reasons, they're pushing things toward risk. And of course, this deception isn't just about meat. It could be using illegal coloring in candy to hide poor quality, or adding unauthorized sweeteners to baked goods, even in food meant for babies. Even just preparing or storing food in unsanitary conditions is legally considered a form of adulteration. All right, we've looked at the chemical accidents, and we've looked at the deliberate deceptions. So let's bring this all home.
what does this all actually mean for you, the person standing in the grocery aisle trying to decide what to buy? So when you boil it all down, these are the two hidden risks we're really talking about. On one side, you have the accident, those unwanted byproducts from processing and cooking. And on the other, you have the deception, the intentional stuff that's done purely for economic gain. You know, this quote from the source material really sums it all up perfectly. It highlights how complex this all is, how problems can come from legally required additives interacting in weird ways, right alongside intentional fraud and just basic failures in keeping things clean. It's a very tangled web. Look, the whole point of this isn't to make you afraid of every food label you see. Not at all. It's just about being aware. It's about knowing the difference between a risk that comes from chemistry and a risk that comes from greed, so you can be a more informed shopper.
So we'll just leave you with this question to think about. How does this change the way you look at a food label now? Next time you see a super long, complex list of ingredients, are you going to wonder if it's hiding a chemical accident or a calculated deception? Definitely some food for thought.